The party begins in New Orleans as Republicans strike up the band for George Bush. The gavel signals the start of a convention and the end of an era. This is the CBS Evening News. Dan Rather reporting tonight from our convention headquarters at the Superdome in beautiful New Orleans. Good evening. The Republican National Convention has opened. Tonight is President Ronald Reagan's night. Tomorrow, the night of the religious rite, followed by running mate time, and then on Thursday, George Bush's acceptance address, his big shot at defining himself to the people of the United States. Correspondent Bob Schieffer has been following developments.
The beginning was conventional enough, lots of hoopla, a full quotient of funny hats, and camaraderie. But Republicans have been saying for weeks now that this is going to be a tough take-no-prisoners campaign, and the first hardballs were thrown long before prime time.
You have to admit, Atlanta was good theater. It was an off-Broadway revival of The Odd Couple, starring the diminutive clerk from Massachusetts and the tall stranger from Texas.
The most surprising disclosure came from another primary campaign also ran. Pete DuPont said he's invited Jesse Jackson to become a Republican, offering Jackson this advice.
But as long as you speak as a Democrat, you will never be a successful leader.
It's advice Jackson won't take, of course, but if he did, he'd find this conservative gathering strikingly different from the Democratic conclave in Atlanta. Here, nearly 70% of the delegates are men. Only 4% are black. Nearly half the Atlanta delegates were women. Nearly a quarter were black. This is Ronald Reagan's night at the convention, but his surprise cameo appearance at a lunch honoring his wife clearly made her day. And it was the First Lady who disclosed the stage directions for the coming political drama.
We've had a wonderful run, but the time has come for the Bushes to step into the political leading roles and for the Reagans to step into the wings.
One-time primary player Pat Robertson arrived this afternoon applauding the coming caste change and pledging full support. The only discontent, and it was minor, came from New Hampshire Senator Gordon Humphrey's group, which continues to press for a conservative running mate. Bush himself remained offstage in Washington, except for brief appearances on morning television, where he pondered his new role.
I have had to lighten up, as you say, and say to the world, I guess, through this convention and other ways, this is what makes me tick. And I do think that I should share what I really feel about family with the American people.
And the delegates here don't disagree. After 8 years as number 2, they really want to hear now what George Bush would do as number 1. Dan.
Thanks, Bob. Correspondent Leslie Stahl is following the orchestrated, manipulated mystery of this convention, who the vice presidential nominee is going to be. George Bush may already have made up his mind. He has said he expected to make a decision before he comes to New Orleans tomorrow, but to keep it secret. Leslie?
Dan, how do you pick a vice president? Well, you float 13 names, kill off 12 of them, and voila, the job is done.
It's been like a name-a-day game show. Someone from the South, someone young, a woman, a Catholic, whatever it takes to build suspense and keep the public tuned in. The new name of the day is Senator Pete Domenici of New Mexico, Italian, son of an immigrant grocer, former chairman of the Budget Committee.
If you're running against Michael Dukakis, it doesn't hurt necessarily to have a Republican version of Michael Dukakis for vice president.
Yesterday's name was Senator Dan Quayle of Indiana, called the Robert Redford of politics, strong with women. But his prospects may have suffered when it was learned that he's a multimillionaire. One of last week's names took himself off the list.
I've said, that I was not interested in being vice president. I've said that dozens of times in dozens of forums.
Others want it so badly, they've launched full-scale campaigns for the job.
Could I be a good vice president? You bet. I was a good second-string quarterback, and I could be a good second-string quarterback for George Bush.
I want to help George Bush. And I guess that's about all I can say.
None of the survivors guarantees a key state or a sure slice of the vote. And Bush is finding that whoever helps with one group may hurt with another. For example, Bush is under pressure from conservatives to pick one of their own.
There's nobody with a great conservative appeal who also bridges the gender gap. And that's one of the great weaknesses of Bush's options here.
There is one long-shot option, but he may be overqualified.
If Bush has made a decision, he's not told anyone who's telling. It could be that he has a few more names to throw into the air to keep us all guessing before Thursday morning, when he's expected to tell all at a breakfast here with the Texas delegation. Dan?
Leslie, if you're George Bush, what have you been hearing from your advisors?
Well, the politicians are telling him that the smart pick is Bob Dole. But if Bush chooses the man he'd most like to have those Thursday lunches with in the Oval Office, he'll probably pick Alan Simpson. And we have been told that the Bush people have gone back to Alan Simpson and urged him not to completely rule himself out.
Well, Leslie, if you're here during the broadcast, call collect. We'll put it on. Thanks. This is George Bush's week here in New Orleans, but it is Ronald Reagan's night. President Reagan will say his first and perhaps biggest farewell to the party faithful. It's being headlined as his last hurrah. The party faithful will pay tribute to the Reagan era and then try to convince the president he should spend part of the fall delivering heavy shots against Michael Dukakis. Bill Plant, who has covered the Reagan presidency from the start, is down at the podium. Bill?
Dan, Ronald Reagan will come to this podium tonight right here for what is bound to be the final triumphant moment of his public life, and certainly probably the emotional high point of his whole public life as well. The White House staff is telling us to expect a real barn burner of a speech. Vintage Reagan, they say, very personal. And certainly, Mr. Reagan feels that it is still morning in America as he concludes his stewardship. Ronald Reagan's main concerns and goals have remained consistent over 25 years in politics and from beginning to end in his presidency.
It is my intention to curb the size and influence of the federal establishment. It's not the government. It's the American people who have made our nation the greatest country on earth.
While overall government spending hasn't shrunk during two Reagan administrations, there have been major shifts in the priorities. Less social spending, more for defense, and dramatically lower taxes have redefined what's possible and what's politically acceptable. In the Republican Party, while there are still factional fights, there's no argument over the basic direction.
It's a conservative party. There are different varieties of conservatism. There's religious conservatism, there's establishment conservatism, there's neoconservatism. But the Republican Party very clearly is a conservative party. Ronald Reagan has Reaganized that party.
And the president's impact on the Democrats may be just as significant. They talk less about expensive new programs, and they don't even mention the word taxes. Instead, as this political cartoon suggests, today's Democrats often sound more like Ronald Reagan than some of their liberal predecessors.
They can try and adopt our words, but as long as we Republicans get out there and give the American people the music, there isn't a chance they'll get away with it.
Whatever the rhetoric, whoever wins will find his options somewhat limited. The next president will inherit a federal judiciary in which half the judges have been appointed by Mr. Reagan, as well as budget deficits and tax rates which leave almost no room for maneuvering.
The deficit, more than any other single thing, institutionalizes the Reagan Revolution. What it says to the Democrats is, there isn't any money. Reagan pulled the revenue plug on the federal government.
Dan, Ronald Reagan may exit the stage knowing that he has gone away with the satisfaction that he has changed the rules. His staff says this much for sure, that he will give his audience as he leaves, in the best tradition of both politics and show business, a big finish. Dan?
Bill Plant, thank you. Democrat Michael Dukakis is in for a week of long-distance GOP verbal attacks launched from down there at the podium. One Republican said today, we're going to hammer him. Dukakis made it clear today that he doesn't intend to take the assault lying down. Bill Whitaker is traveling with the candidate.
Bracing for the political drubbing of his life from Republicans in New Orleans, Michael Dukakis got in a few preemptive licks of his own today. He hurled back President Reagan's charge that Dukakis is running away from the so-called L word, liberal.
The L word in this campaign is leadership. Leadership. People are going to be looking at me and looking at Mr. Bush, and they're going to be making a decision on which one of us has the leadership ability.
Under cover of conducting state business, today was in fact another campaign day for Dukakis. He talked about economic development, daycare, and universal health insurance, issues central to his presidential bid.
A guarantee of basic health insurance strengthens families, strengthens opportunity. That's something the Republican Party has never understood.
the one overt bow to national politics. Here at a Worcester daycare center, Dukakis called for a permanent manned space station and a stepped-up U.S. space effort. All to be paid for with reductions in Reagan administration weapons systems, like the MX missile and Star Wars. Running mate Lloyd Benson, campaigning at NASA in Houston today, picked up Dukakis' drumbeat.
A manned space station, and he thinks that that's very important, that we keep our technological lead and that we stay ahead of the Russians in this effort.
The Dukakis campaign expects to see George Bush rise in the polls following the Republican bash in New Orleans. But in a break with tradition, Dukakis plans a heavy campaign schedule this week, hoping to make the headlines as something other than the target of Republican barbs. Bill Whitaker, CBS News, Worcester, Massachusetts.
And still to come on tonight's CBS Evening News. The heat's on, and Richard Schlesinger looks at what the weather is doing to us. And at a time when Republicans talk about reaching out to minorities, correspondent Susan Spencer looks at a convention with fewer black faces than there were 4 years ago.
Around here, breakfast time is like the playoffs. My goal is getting him to eat right. His game plan's a little different. So I give him Wheaties. It's full of good nutrition, not sugar. He's sweet enough.
Wheaties, 100% whole wheat, naturally low in sugar. That's champion nutrition for the whole family.
Victory.
Red Lobster asks, are you ready to feast? Ready for crab legs, fried shrimp, and a lobster tail on one plate? That's the ultimate feast. Are you ready to feast? Ready for shrimp? 29 succulent shrimp done 4 delicious ways? Then try our great shrimp feast. And if you're ready to feast, you're in a Red Lobster mood. We know how you love seafood. Now, Tuesday and Wednesday only, try our shrimp and steak special, just $9.95.
What's the best kind of fruit? The kind that's fresh, moist, and plump. That's why Sunsweet are my favorite kind of pitted prunes. Moist, plump, and fresh. Sunsweet, because the best prunes are fresh prunes.
When you buy Corning prescription lenses that change, it's like getting free light tints, free medium tints, dark tints, and a range of free sunglasses all in one. Corning lenses that change, the only eyeglasses you'll ever need.
The temperature was in the 90s here in New Orleans today, which is about what you'd expect in August. What you might not expect is an 18th straight day for temperatures in the 90s in Washington, D.C. A smoldering heat wave is stretching from the plains to the northeast coast. It was so hot a Massachusetts radio station broadcast snow warnings, trying to cool off its listeners. It was so hot, but let Richard Schlesinger tell you.
The polar bears at New York's Central Park Zoo are always the objects of admiration, but nowadays they are objects of envy. People get paid to keep them cool. Humans are not so lucky, and this summer in New York, people are wilting in the worst heat since 1944.
It is similar to what would occur in a tropical forest.
The temperature has been above 90 degrees in New York for 33 straight days.
Well, it's hot, humid, miserable, sticky, muggy. It's everything you don't want to be around.
Across the country, 21 cities reached record high temperatures over the weekend. This summer, about 50 people nationwide have died from the heat. The strain on the nation's power supply has begun to show. In Boston, there were scattered blackouts. On Long Island, there were brownouts. And in Buffalo, New York, cooling off in Lake Erie wasn't easy. The water temperature there set a record. 80 degrees.
I wish I could sleep in the freezer.
New Yorkers pursuing less radical dreams found stores sold out of air conditioners. The heat was blamed for inflaming passions in a Massachusetts prison where an inmate uprising erupted. Psychologists say it's true. The heat does bring out the worst in us.
People will start showing anger, and they'll get irritable with other people and around them, and they may be more critical.
There is reportedly some relief on the way, at least for the Northeast. The humidity should be a little lower, providing a break in what forecasters are calling 3H weather: hazy, hot, and humid. Richard Schlesinger, CBS News, New York.
A big storm is breaking over the drought-ravaged Farm Belt. It isn't bringing the promised relief of rain, but a burst of lawsuits. Gary Reeves explains.
The drought has been scorching his corn and soybeans, but Ohio farmer Jim Lutmer thought he'd finally outsmarted the weather. He bought rain insurance, a policy that would pay off if rainfall were less than half of normal. But Lutmer felt outsmarted himself when the insurance company told him he wasn't covered.
They knowingly and willfully tried to beat us. That is ultimately the bottom line.
Several thousand farmers in 10 Midwestern states share the same complaint. In June, they lined up to write checks for rain policies from the New Jersey-based Chubb Corporation, an insurance giant. But in July, Chubb announced that only a fraction of them were actually insured.
I've bought insurance all my life off and on. I've never been used by an insurance company like I have by this company.
I don't know. It just seems like you can't trust anybody.
Chubb says there is a simple explanation. It authorized a sale of only $30 million worth of rain insurance, but its agent sold 10 times that much. The company won't insure the extra farmers, but it has offered them refunds equal to double their premiums, about $5,000 each, far less than the $40,000 they'd receive if their policies paid off.
We do feel very, very sorry for the impact that this has had upon the farmers, but it is not Chubb's fault.
When it was clear that it wasn't going to rain, they decided to get out, renege on their promise.
Class action suits have been filed and state agencies are investigating.
It's really too late for us, just like too late for the crop here now.
It may be too late for the crops, but if rainfall reaches near normal levels by the end of August, Chubb won't have to pay off on the policies it is honoring. That leaves the farmers and the insurance giant together praying for rain. Gary Reeves, CBS News, Chicago.
A new look today at life and death in these United States. The government's National Center for Health Statistics reported more births than in any year since 1964 and an all-time record high number of deaths. The report said that a slight increase in fertility combined with a huge number of women in prime childbearing years to produce 3,829,000 births. Record numbers of deaths are common recently as our nation's share of elderly people increases.
This isn't gonna make it, I just know it. A cereal today has gotta be different. It's gotta look like cookies or taste like tree branches. All you got here is the same old flakes. This is different. Simple, light. I'm surprised. I like this a lot. Well, you've got a big new hit on your hands, I just know it.
Kellogg's Corn Flakes.
Corn Flakes? I knew it.
Taste them again for the first time.
It took 2,000 years, but a revolutionary discovery is changing the way men think about coloring their gray hair. It's called Just for Men, from the leader in men's hair coloring. Simply apply Just for Men, and in 5 minutes, shampoo out. Your gray is blended away, leaving your natural-looking color. 5 minutes. Here, look at me. Just for Men leaves your hair looking healthy and fuller, and it won't fade or wash out. Just for Men, in the men's hair care section.
Now for indigestion, gas, introducing new extra strength Malox Plus. It neutralizes more than any leading antacid and dissolves gas. Nobody does as much as new extra strength Malox Plus.
When you go shopping, you have to find the right fit, style, color.
When you do, you feel great.
But when you also find the Made in the USA label, you feel even better.
It's a great feeling.
Made in the USA.
President Najibullah of Afghanistan said today that Afghan troops have recaptured one provincial city that fell to Muslim rebels in the last few days after Soviet troops had pulled out. Najibullah's news conference in Kabul was punctuated by 4 dull thuds from rebel rockets hitting nearby areas of the capital. Panama buried a symbol of democracy today. Arnulfo Arias was elected president 3 times in 50 years, and each time he was overthrown by the military. He died last week at the age of 86. His funeral today became an outpouring of protest against military ruler Manuel Noriega. Juan Vasquez is in Panama.
As the funeral procession for the former president wound through the narrow 16th century streets of Panama City today, tens of thousands chanted slogans against General Noriega.
It is also the people expressing their desire for Noriega to leave power. This is the first time in over a year we've been able to protest.
Noriega claims his opposition is limited to Panama's traditional elite and white-collar workers, but today's crowd included virtually every political and economic class. The demonstration began with a funeral mass in which Arias was eulogized as Panama's greatest nationalist. The presence of American Ambassador Arthur Davis lent symbolic U.S. support to the occasion, but the United States seems powerless to affect political events here. Even the opposition claims U.S. economic sanctions have hurt the average Panamanian more than they have hurt Noriega.
They were ill-conceived and ill-implemented.
A public opinion poll released today claims most Panamanians expect the U.S. to help them restore democracy. The death of Arias has given the opposition an unmatched opportunity to focus its anger against General Noriega, but he is not an easy target.
He has all the power, he controls the military, and this is our arm, handkerchief. It's a tough battle.
For the opposition, the task is to find a popular leader who can win the loyalty of the late president's followers and challenge Noriega's grip on power. Juan Vasquez, CBS News, Panama City.
Thousands of South Korean student radicals were driven back when they tried to march to the North Korean border today to demand reunification of the country. The government mobilized a huge force of riot police who stopped them from getting out of Seoul. With just 5 weeks to go before the Olympic Games in Seoul, today's protest drew much less support than a similar march last June. Enzo Ferrari, whose bright red sports cars became a symbol of life in the fast lane, has died at his home in Italy. He was 90. Ferrari's racing cars have won 9 world championships, more than any other automobile.
It takes more than years of training to make it to the Olympics. It takes a lot of support. And you can help support the Olympic dream. Because when you clip coupons for selected 3M products, 3M will make a contribution to the United States Olympic team. It's a way for you to help make an athlete's dream come true. Check your Sunday paper for this ad and look for these 3M products. 3M, supporting the dream.
Headaches, backaches, muscle aches and pains. Millions of you experience this kind of everyday pain. And you should know that the pain reliever that's unbeaten for ailments like these is Tylenol. But it wouldn't make any sense to relieve your pain and then irritate your stomach. That's why you should choose a pain reliever that won't cause the stomach irritation possible with aspirin or even ibuprofen. That's why your choice should be Tylenol. It's tough on pain, easy on your stomach.
If they could see you now out on a fun ship cruise. You know, when you take a Carnival cruise, all your shipboard fun is included in the price. All your nighttime entertainment's included. All your food's included, too. They'd never believe it if your friends could see you now. Take a 3, 4, or 7-day cruise on Carnival, the most popular cruise line in the world.
The Census Bureau says there are some 19 million Americans who happen to be black of voting age. More than 50 years, the black vote has been overwhelmingly Democratic. Republicans say it will be different this time around, even as they mount a convention that is just 4% black. Susan Spencer reports.
Since the New Deal days of FDR, the phrase black Republican has almost been a contradiction in terms.
What they have to do is offer more to the blacks.
They primarily do things for those that have, not the have-nots.
It's so ironic. The party of Lincoln, the party that freed the slaves, the party that black Americans supported loyally until the Depression. That party has just 80 black delegates at this convention, one fewer than in 1984. But as Republicans ponder the political game ahead, don't think for a moment that they're giving up on black voters. Not this time around.
This election promises to be very, very close, and my projection is that it will be the black vote that will be the deciding factor in terms of which candidate is elected President of the United States.
With great hoopla, the Bush campaign last week unveiled the coalition of black Republicans.
We are not writing off anybody this year.
Part of the new pitch was repeated this morning as the convention opened. The charge, Democrats take black voters for granted.
Black Democrats in 1988 have only one choice, and that choice is to file for divorce from the Democratic Party on grounds of non-support.
But Bush has two basic problems in convincing blacks that opportunity lies with the GOP: historic voting patterns and the perception by many blacks that during the Reagan-Bush years, they have suffered. The glitter of the Republican parties in the French Quarter isn't reaching the slums of New Orleans, and Democrats contend it never will.
Essentially, there's been a closed-door policy for 7 years. The Republican Party under the Reagan-Bush administration has essentially said, blacks, you're not welcome.
Analysts say that the Republicans' best hope may be the very group energized by the Jackson candidacy. Young black voters, now not so sure that the Democrats were listening after all.
A significant number of them identify very closely with the Republican Party in terms of values, and with Ronald Reagan in terms of many of the attributes he has demonstrated.
Some Republicans think this could be a watershed election. By that they mean winning only 15 to 20% of the black vote. Such modest goals certainly would surprise PBS Pinchback, the country's first and only black governor, more than 100 years ago, a Republican from Louisiana. Susan Spencer, CBS News, New Orleans.
And that's some of our world tonight, reported from our convention headquarters under the dome here in New Orleans. Until our live convention coverage with Walter Cronkite, Eric Severide, Diane Sawyer, Ed Bradley, and Bob Schieffer tonight at 9 Eastern Time, Dan Rather. See you soon.
For all your pet means to you, shouldn't you give him and your family protection against fleas and ticks? You can with a 2-in-1 flea and tick collar from Hearts, the collar that's been protecting your pet for years. And the Hearts 2-in-1 collar kills fleas and ticks on your dog or cat for up to 5 months. It even works when wet. So get the collar that really works, because no pet should go anywhere without Hearts protection. The Hearts 2-in-1 collar, protection against fleas and ticks.
These competitor cereals have a lot of fiber. Fiber's good for you, but unfortunately they also have added sugar and they're not low in sodium. Fiber One, however, is now low in sodium and has absolutely no added sugar, and no leading cereal has more fiber, all of which makes Fiber One very good for you. Fiber One. Get more of the fiber your body needs and less of the stuff it doesn't.
After flying so many aircraft, I'm not easily impressed with car performance. Then I drove the Cutlass Supreme pace car at the Indy 500. I was impressed.
In USAC tests, Cutlass Supreme out-cornered the BMW 325 and brake better than the Ford Thunderbird LX. And the Cutlass Supreme costs a whole lot less.
So I got 3 of them. Hey, I got 2 kids, boys.
And now Oldsmobile will buy the air conditioning for you when you buy a 1988 Cutlass Supreme by September 28th.
Campaign 88 heats up as the Republican convention comes to New Orleans. Join Kathleen Sullivan and Harry Smith for full coverage this week on CBS This Morning.
This is CBS.
Coming up on Eyewitness News, the vice presidential possibilities are the talk of the Republican convention, and some Tennessee names are figuring in. We will have the story live from New Orleans. And the bill that would start the search for a new landfill may be heading for deferral at the Metro Council. We'll tell you why. Those stories and more next on Eyewitness News.
It's time, Tennessee. Time to leave the ordinary behind. Time to move up to the cars and trucks that can get you where you're going. Time to turn to the dealership with